Living in the Philippines, one of the questions that we often get asked is about how do you deal with the temperatures. Now, one of our subscribers, Lumi, who was born here, says that Bohol, which is where we are, is probably one of the hottest places in the Philippines. So one of the things that you have to learn to deal with is the heat. And so many people say to me that they love the idea of paradise, but it must have as one of the most integral parts of it is AC. So that's usually the deal breaker, but it doesn't have to be. But then maybe I'm just more able to deal with heat than most people. On the other hand, I can't deal with cold. So people are writing, emailing, or messaging, and they're talking about how they're having snow. Well, I wouldn't be able to advise anyone on how to deal with snow, and so maybe I'm better at dealing with heat than anybody else that I know. But it is hot, but we have reasonable ventilation in our house. Along the top of the house where the heat would be able to get out, heat rising, we're able to deal with a good flow of ventilation. We go to sleep at night, we don't even have a fan, not even a fan. So never mind the luxury of AC. Now, what I did observe when I was in Florida, which is also a pretty muggy place and gets hot, I noticed that people are very strange on heat, and some of it I think is how they've conditioned themselves. Now, I knew an AC heating engineer, and he used to tell me how he was quite puzzled by people. He would have his regular customers. Now, in the summer, when it was hot, people would be calling him and complaining because their AC would only take them down to 65 degrees Fahrenheit. So he would rush along there and he would make sure that the AC would actually give them that kind of temperature, so they'd be in, for me, nearly freezing temperatures. Now, as soon as the summer was over and the winter came, they would crank up the heater, and the heater would give them 80 degrees. So if it didn't give them 80 degrees, they would be calling my friend the engineer and complaining that these are the exact same people and the exact same AC heating unit, and it's failing to give them 75, 80 degrees. Now, that 75 or 80 degrees, which they are now needing, was the 75 or 80 degrees that they were complaining about in the summer. So the whole subject of whether people can live in various temperatures is a puzzling one. The other thing that my friend who posed this question about the weather and how I deal, or how we deal with the heat, he said, "What, you don't have any cold drinks?" Well, the cold drink thing is a whole other health issue when you talk to anybody who's into real, a fanatic on health. And they say that drinking very cold drinks is actually not very good for you. Now, what I notice is that if I have a very cold drink, I can't drink as much water. Whereas if I go for room temperature, I can drink a fair amount of water, and that it doesn't affect my body. I can drink a good amount. I can't drink a good amount of iced water. So actually, because we do have a fridge, but it's a tiny little thing, probably not nearly as big as the fridge that most people, say in Florida, would have in their garage. Now ours is a small thing that would just fit under the countertop in most kitchens. It doesn't give us iced drinks. What they do here is they have little tubes of plastic, fill them full of water, tie them in a knot, and put these sort of water sausages into the fridge. And then they use that for ice. People make a humble sideline living out of selling ice. They make up these tubes in the plastic, and they sell that for people. Well, people need ice. I know that my other American friend can't visualize a situation where he doesn't have iced drinks. It doesn't really affect me on that. So, am I special on the temperature thing, or have I just learned to cope with slightly warmer temperatures? I think that it's the latter. I think that anybody can get used to temperatures if they want to be there. Now, it's the old thing, isn't it, that if you don't want to be in the situation that you're in right now, you'll find stuff to complain about. Oh God, is it so hot in this place? I remember coming back from a trip to China, and I sat next to a young American, a teenage American girl, who started off the conversation about how glad she was to be out of China, because, for heaven's sake, there's no AC. So she complained about no AC, and that was the main focus of all her complaints. And then finally I said to her, so what did you do? She said, well, I was with a student body organised thing, and they took us around. She said, well, what did you see? I asked. She said, well, they took us around to all kinds of things. We went around to factories, we went around to places where they do pottery. They did all of this incredible artwork. She said it was just amazing. We saw them doing the work, we saw the artists working. When we went around the factories, we saw how brilliant these women are, that they can assemble these tiny little things with their delicate hands, and it's got such an amazing talent for very fine detail. She said, I couldn't believe how good the artwork was. And then they took us around to these beautiful, and she went on and on and on, and I said, I wish I could have been on that trip. And she kind of paused, and she realized that perhaps the lack of AC was not the only way to judge whether she had enjoyed herself or not. So, how to deal with the weather? Well, come over and experience it. That's the way to do it. You experience the weather and you dress for it. When people talk to me who are very good at handling the cold, they always say, I can always handle the cold. You can always put on another sweater. You cannot, and they tell you how they're dealing with it. Well, how I deal with it, I dress accordingly, shorts and t-shirts, and I drink lots of water, room temperature water. That's if I'm at home. If I'm outside, obviously, I love to have an iced drink. But whenever I went into McDonald's or any fast food place in America, and I would get a drink, they would fill a huge beaker, plastic container full of ice, and then what little space there was left, they would put some Coke in there. And I would ask them, can you not put so much ice in there so I can have some of the drink too? And that's what they would do. So you come over, you experience the weather, you dress accordingly, I guess cotton, you wear shorts, you go without socks, you go in what they call slippers here, call them all kinds of things in other places, but you dress accordingly and you experience what is happening around you. You look at what you are seeing. Now, maybe everybody says, well, obviously I'm looking at what I see, But sometimes we get those two things mixed up. We're seeing it, but we're probably thinking about something totally different. Probably thinking about whether there's no AC or not. So how to handle the weather? Come over, experience the weather, experience it. Actually let yourself be a little warmer than usual. Just think, instead of thinking that you're in the summer and should be down to 65 on the AC, think that you're in the winter and the AC is really a little too cold. Adjust your mind. Think in a different way. Look at all that magic around you. If you're in a wonderful country, wherever it is, Philippines or not, I don't know, Costa Rica, wherever you are, you can experience what is happening in the moment. And that to me is how I experience and cope with and adjust to the weather. Hope this helps. Please share. If you can comment, that would be great. So definitely we would want you to subscribe, and hope that you will be seeing us again. Thanks for looking in. This is a foreigner living in the Philippines.